Knowing this, knowing that it's through Jesus, through his death on the cross, knowing that through God's gift to us of righteousness, through God's forgiveness of us, what you notice is that this makes Paul joyful. This brings him incredible joy. This is the one who is everything. This is the one who is more valuable than everything else. This is the one who everything else in comparison to Jesus is rubbish. And so Paul, as you read Paul's letters and as you read this one in particular, you see this joy that comes out of him. And it's not just any joy. I call it crazy joy. It's a crazy, overwhelming type of joy. Have a look at verse number 10. We've almost finished. Verse number 10, he says, I want to know Christ and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of sharing in his sufferings, becoming like him in his death, and so somehow to attain to the resurrection from the dead. There's a whole bunch of things going on in there, but Paul, you actually see that he wants to rejoice not just in the good times, he actually wants to rejoice in the hard times, in the sharing, in the sufferings of Jesus, in becoming like Jesus in his death. And so the picture you get in the New Testament is that rejoicing is not just on the happy, clappy days. It's not just on the really cool and easy good days. Rejoicing for the Christian is actually in the context of suffering. That's what makes it crazy. Let me read to you a verse from Romans chapter 5. You don't need to go there. Let me just read it to you quickly. Here's what it says. It says, not only so, but we also rejoice in our sufferings. We rejoice in our sufferings. That's the crazy joy. Why? Because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance character, and character hope. You see, for the Christian, we rejoice when times are tough, when times are crap, when times are bad, because we have something that is far better in Jesus. We have something that is far better in Jesus, eternal life in Jesus. So we rejoice in Jesus now, in the good times and in the bad times. Now, a couple of years back in 2003, you may not remember it, there were some bushfires in Canberra. Anyone remember that at all? A bunch of people do. There's about 600 homes that were destroyed in those bushfires back in January 2003. And I was watching the news report interviewing people who've just had their homes burnt down, and the stupid interviewer going around to people going, so how do you feel about your home being burnt down? Oh, you idiot, how do you think they feel? And so I'm starting to get angry at the dumb news reporters. And then they ask this question to this couple, how do you feel about your house burning down? And this couple, smiling, this is all they said. They said, look, we're Christian. It's fine. We've got something better in Jesus. Something like that. I agree with them. I go, yeah, Jesus is better than my house. But 2 hours after it's burnt down, they're smiling. They're rejoicing because that is an opportunity for them to know that the house doesn't matter. The car doesn't matter. The photo albums don't matter. The jewelry doesn't matter. The goldfish doesn't matter. The pet dog that died in the house doesn't matter compared to knowing Jesus. Jesus is better. Jesus is the best, and he is incomparable to know him compared to everything else. Look, my guess is here tonight in a city like Sydney, where we've got so much stuff, where we've got access to good education, where we have an incredibly beautiful city, where we have all these incredible relationships, we have great schools, we have our homes full of stuff, we've got great families, all those type of things. My guess is Sydney and this city is an easy place where we can actually let things rob us of our joy in Jesus. We can actually let things get in the way of considering Jesus as the best. And so what we need to actually do is we need to recognize that everything is rubbish. Everything needs to be put in the bin compared to knowing Jesus. Everything, even the good things, not just the bad things that you chuck in the bin, even the good things get chucked in the bin compared to knowing Jesus. You know, it's pretty it's pretty easy to chuck some chopsticks in the bin. I like sushi. I'm pretty confident that Jesus is better than sushi. It's pretty easy to consider some food better than Jesus. Soccer used to be my God. It's not my God anymore. I really like it. But again, it's pretty easy to consider soccer rubbish. Yeah, compared to knowing Jesus. It's a great game and we'll be playing it in heaven. That'll be cool. But compared to Jesus, Jesus is better. Jesus is better and it is rubbish compared to knowing Jesus. But to actually consider my son as rubbish, the Bible's not saying my son is rubbish. The Bible's not saying that he's terrible or anything like that. The Bible is saying that compared to Jesus, he is rubbish. I love my son, I love my wife, I love my family, I love my son, but Jesus is to come first. Jesus is to come first. And so I'm to consider my son rubbish compared to knowing Jesus. Now, I'm struggling to put him in the bin right now. One of the things I like to do with my son, Samuel, is I bath him. That's pretty cool, especially when he poos in the bath. Poos come up a bit in this talk, hasn't it? Anyway, it's hilarious. I like to bath him, and I sing him a song. I say, the best time of the day, the best time of the day, bath and the Bible, the best time of the day. And I just sing that while I'm washing him and he's playing. And a couple of weeks ago, I've sung the song, I've bathed him, I've dried him, I've dressed him. I've opened the Bible and I'm reading the Bible with him. And I read it was in a children's Bible. Genesis chapter 22 is where the story came from. If you don't know about Genesis chapter 22, Genesis chapter 22 has Abraham in it. And if you don't know about Abraham, he was this old git. He was about 100, and he didn't have any kids. And God said, Abraham, you're going to have yourself a kid. And through that kid, you're going to have a stack more kids. And Abraham was like, what the heck? Anyway, he has a kid. Anyway, that's a really quick summary. He has the kid. By chapter 22 of Genesis, this old git Abraham's got his little kid with him, and God says to Abraham, now give me your son. What? Now give me your son. You need to sacrifice your son. And so they walk up the mountain and start the process of about to kill his son. And he's got the son on the altar, about to kill him, and God says, Abraham, Abraham, stop! Don't lay a hand on the son. Here is this guy, Abraham, who God had promised that he would have this son, and now God is telling him to kill the son. Yet Abraham knew that he was going to trust God and he was going to obey God, as ridiculous as what he requested him to do was. And so he's about to go kill his son. Man, I cried as I'm reading that to my son. It was the first time I'd read the story since he was born, and I'm holding him in my arms and thinking, how could he do that? He could do that because he knew that Jesus was of greater value than even his son. Jesus is of greater value than everything. Jesus is of the most value.